do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. Okay, so Jody, I know your time is precious. You've got kiddos in a classroom, and so we appreciate you being here. We've got some curriculum leaders, and we are just talking about, we want to soak up your information because we know you've been doing this for a while. So if you want to just go ahead and start, kind of talk us through your experiences, what you've done, then guys jump in with questions, and we will just kind of go from there.
Yeah, well, I actually went into teaching already. My first year of teaching was in a blended classroom. I was certified in EMINTS as a first year teacher. And so I walked in with 29, and I was working with an inner city population. I had 29 fourth graders, 12 of those PC computers and all these cords. And it was like, what am I doing? So I think like my first day I had like kids in a fight already, and I was like, and I don't know how to plug in these computers. So definitely overwhelming. So it took me a while to kind of get the hang, but I definitely learned how precious technology can be used as a tool in the classroom, and then also how it can be detrimental as well. And so I've been blended learning for this is my 9th year doing it. And so I geek out about it, but I also geek out about healthy moderation with technology as well. I have worked in Google, and but I really am specialized mainly in grades 1 through 5th is what I've worked with the most. And so usually secondary schools, I'm like, I don't know how you guys do it. But I definitely, all the trainings I've been through, and the district I originally came from, they were very passionate about getting teachers into blended learning, but way before the pandemic or anything. And so it was just like a norm in my district that I had previously come from, where you were required to participate in blended learning, but not to the level of the pandemic, where you have like a whole group of kids at home permanently and a whole classroom that you're working with. And so that is brand new for sure. And so I'm happy to share, some things that I've learned and still learning. And then I'm also here to kind of learn what you guys are going through as well, and take off some knowledge from you guys, pick at your brains and see what you guys are doing too. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Jody. So I've got Rachel Shell here. She is our tech guru, so she is going to be helping to kind of facilitate. So just kind of talk to us about some of the things that you have felt worked really, really well in terms of lower elementary. What are those things that technology-wise that you absolutely can't live without?
Well, I feel like I have to, even though this isn't tech focused, it's so important because, once again, technology is just a tool. It is not going to change and make the difference in kids' lives. Like, as a teacher, when you love your content and you love your kids, and you are doing the original best practices before technology, that is what makes technology work. And so I just like really feel like I have to emphasize that. But if I had to pick the tech tools I just can't live without, it would be probably Google PowerPoint, which is probably really lame, and also Seesaw. I am so obsessed with Seesaw. I can't think without it when it comes to virtual learning. I mean, I'm all through Seesaw because, and I talked about this several presentations ago, but that idea of high, rich level learning, the tech tools on Seesaw can provide that. And so in a way that can differentiate and personalize things for kids that is even more effective than just being on site. So those would be my 2 faves.
Hey, Jody. So I love that you started out with, best practices before we throw technology into the mix. So what are some of your best practices away from the technology? We know we have to have technology, but what's your best practices before you start including technology?
Before I started including technology? Well, structure, having having strong clarity with students. And I mean, it's pretty much how you want to be on site, having good, strong structure on site, being really clear and simple. I have a rule of thumb, like as a teacher, I need to talk as little as possible. The least amount of talking I can possibly do, which is hard because I'm a big talker. So, but the less I talk, and only give the precise, clear details, the more exceptional learning experience my kids get. Because, and that's another thing is, right now in this pandemic, we're wanting to put a lot of work on the teachers. And so that's another best practice is we need to shift that to the students. And you guys know this, right? You guys, like, we want the students to walk away exhausted from the day, like needing a nap after school, because or after coming away from their computer, because they've worked so hard and they've been so focused. And it's the same thing on site. Like, I try to do the least amount as possible with my direct instruction and my facilitated instruction, and make sure the kids are really working through and wrestling with ideas. Another best practice I have and I'll just stick to this as my last one, it's my favorite, it's the best practice of failure. We want to protect kids from failure so much. And you see it, when kids are struggling with learning a tech tool on Seesaw, it's like, oh, I totally get why that's hard. Let me come in and here, let me show you. And honestly, the more you just let them fail and wrestle and work through it, the less work you have to do as a teacher, and the more they will gain from that experience. And usually by the end of the year, my kids are so self-regulated. Right now, my kids are so self-regulated. I mean, I have a teacher assistant watching my class, and I know 100% sure my students are all in there working through all of their must-dos for the day, and they know exactly what to do when they're done early, and she's not going to need to help them with tech at all. Not at all. Because I let them fail. I let them mess up, and I hold them accountable to make it better the next. And I think that protecting kids from failure is not nice. It's not kind. It feels like kindness, but it's not. And what it does is it cripples them and develops learned helplessness instead. And so that's one of my favorite things. That's something else I geek out about, is encouraging teachers to just let the kids mess up and watch them do it, and let them completely mess up in that full minute. And then you go in and hit them with the instruction that they need, because it will just have a more powerful effect. So that's my thing that I transfer into virtual learning.
And I love that. And I think that we have to carry that same belief into our own practice, because it's okay, we're going to try this technology, this new program for the first time, and it felt like Flipgrid. Okay, we're going to all do Flipgrid, and then you don't set it up correctly, and it doesn't share, and it has to just be it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up. You can still do this. Because our students are feeling the same thing right now. So I love that. I love that whole philosophy around it. That's great.
But it also protects the teacher's love for their job. And that's what we want. We want teachers to protect their joy of the teaching during this crisis. And, when teachers are trying to take on so much, they get burnt out, and we start losing these amazing teachers. And I worked in inner city for 6 years, and I haven't taught that. I mean, I guess I'm going to my 9th year. I haven't taught for 20 or 30 years, and I'm the only teacher that I went in that's still teaching because of how burnt out. And they're phenomenal teachers. They were way better than me. But it's just, you just have to learn how to protect your joy, and a lot of it is giving the work to the kids and believing that they can handle it. And so that's just something that I don't know, it's starting with that foundation and then talking about technology that I feel really helps have a better experience during this time. So, yeah.
Do you Zoom or use Google Meets with your students who are virtual at the same time that you were teaching kids in class?
Thanks for asking about that. Our district, we were really blessed. Our district purchased an online virtual program so that our students that are virtual, they are not under my full care, I guess you could say. And so they are doing that online program, and we have our counselor, and we have one of our teachers, we hired a new teacher to fill her spot, and our older teacher, who's been with us for a while, is leading interventions for those virtual students. So we have one teacher doing interventions, and then our counselor is kind of the accountability. So she's checking in. She might go visit their homes if they're not turning stuff in. And so we have that sort of accountability piece with the interventions. And what I do for those students is I just go onto that online program that they're using, and I check and make sure that they're turning the work in, and I grade it. And then I send in that information to our counselor, who then can enforce anything that she might need to enforce if they're like not getting it turned in. So, but I have heard of schools, you know, it's so different for each district. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who's doing where she's setting up a camera in her classroom, and then for her virtual students, and then she's teaching her on site. And she says she'll tell her students one thing and then point to the camera and say, and you guys will be doing this. And so, so yeah.
Did she freeze for everybody? Okay, we'll give her a minute. Gotta love technology, right? So she may need to jump back in. So while we're waiting on her to get that fixed, any questions that you have for her that you want to be sure that we answer, if you will pop those in the chat, I think that'll be a really good way for us to keep track of those. Some of the ones I've been thinking about are, you know, what's a typical day look like? Is she back in the waiting room? Okay. Does anybody want to know what program it is that they're using? Are you back, Jody?
Yeah, sorry. Our internet got a little wonky. And
okay.
I just said everything. It just like magically came back on. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you just kind of froze for a second. So we were just kind of talking about some of those questions. So what program is it that y'all are using for the 100% virtual?
We're using Lincoln Learning.
Okay. And so really your responsibility is just to grade that work and then send that back.
Go through, and I just grade, and it can be a very casual grading for us. It's not like really strict to the T, making sure every single thing is aligned, because it's a lot of work to grade all of my on-site work and then grade something that's kind of totally separate. And so I use some of my planning time. I use like 10 minutes to just look through that every single day. And so we do have some freedom on how to just sort of give us time as teachers to handle that kind of workload. So that's been nice as well. So, yeah.
Good.
So Jody, do you feel like, actually, let me ask Jenny's question, because my question's a follow-up to Jenny's here. Are grading responsibilities divided up among your teachers?
No, we don't have that. I've done that before though, which honestly has been really nice, because you're able to have unbiased perception into your grading. So I think that's cool. I don't grade everything turned into Seesaw. I grade, I'm more of like a standard mastery based grader. So my Seesaw activities Monday through Thursday, I'll glance at them quick, and I give feedback to the students who need it. And then Fridays are like my big quiz test heavy day, and that's when I grade what they've taken in from Monday through Thursday, and I assess those standards on Friday to drive my instruction for the next week. So so it's really just like a one day's worth of grading. And I make sure they turn all their work on Seesaw, even if it's just like a picture of something they wrote. And I've taught them how to take clear photos so I can grade that quicker, because grading on Seesaw is like so fast.
So do you actually do any face-to-face meetings like over Zoom, Google Meet, or something like that with your virtual students?
No, but we did during the pandemic, we did an hour of small groups every day. And then the rest we could, I selected one content area to do videos that I recorded, and then the other content areas to sort of like reduce on stress, I used already pre-recorded videos from YouTube and other places to lead the lessons. And that kind of helped. I felt like took off some pressure from me to record every single video or to do the whole class Zoom, which just can be really overwhelming unless you have really good structure and like classroom management and holding the kids accountable on their Zoom and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we are going to be doing some blended learning practice days in our district. And so, eventually, I'm guessing if we do go virtual, we absolutely will be continuing that where we do have to Zoom every day.
But I like that. I like you're making this distinction because that's something that we're talking about also in our region and at a state level, is that these virtual students are not blended learning students. They are virtual students. And it sounds like y'all have this support system for these virtual students, and then you have blended learning practices for the students that are coming to campus but may not always be available to be on campus. So I just kind of wanted to point that out to everybody, that there is a clear distinction between 100% virtual and then blended students who are still coming onto campus. So kind of leading into that, so what does that typical day look like for your students who are coming on campus? So how much time are they spending online? What are they doing in your platform? Like, can you kind of walk us through a day in your life?
I can show you as well if you'd like. Would that
be great?
Okay, I'll share. Let me make sure I don't have anything weird on my desktop first. Okay. Okay, so let me pull up the weekly planner. Oh yeah, it's all ready to go here for you guys. Okay. So I personally wanted to carry the sort of strict structure I have in my classroom. I wanted to make sure that transferred immediately over if we go virtual. And so day one, I think it was day two, I think of on-site actually, my students were on technology right away. And I already sort of visualized what I wanted their day to look like. And exactly what I want them to do right when they get in the morning. And I did kind of structure it so that it was kind of like 21st century skills. And so we do have to use Google, the Google Classroom, because it's just for administration to post things on there. And so I actually, even though I don't operate from this hardly at all as a teacher, I make sure my students check it every day. And so I actually have their little morning routine on here. So they click on this. The first thing they do in the morning is they put their backpack away and they get settled. But then they have to log into their Google Classroom. And then they have to check their Google Stream, even if there's nothing there, because if we go virtual, there will be stuff there because, you know, the principals will be wanting and the counselor and, you know, people will want to post announcements. So I really do just keep this stream all about announcements from administration. I don't personally put anything on here. And as you can tell, there's only been one notification from our principal so far, and then this was the only material I've ever posted all year was our morning routine. And so every day the kids click on classwork, and this is just a material that I put on here. They check their Google Stream, and I do make them check their email because it's just one of those 21st century skills. We all have to check our email in the morning. So I want to get them into that habit, and I send them messages and encouragement, you know, throughout the year or so far through this year, just to get them noticing those emails and like wanting to check those daily. And then they click on our weekly planner, and before the day gets started, I have them go ahead and get started on their work. And even if they make a bunch of mistakes on Seesaw, after I teach my lesson, they can go back and fix it. And I feel like that, once again, it's a chance for them to kind of fail a little and go back and review that failure and make adjustments before they submit it permanently to the teacher. And so the first thing they do is they click on this Google presentation that I turned into a website. It's just a Google Slides that I use. And this is my newsletter here. And so this is something, it's just a website that I give to parents as well. And so the parents can see all the work that the kids have to do. I'm sorry, there's very embarrassing videos on here. Oh dear. So this is where they can check. I've linked these buttons to anything that they might need in relation to the calendar there. And then they just go to Monday, and we do this in class. This is where I keep my lesson plans as well. This is my lesson plans, and this is the kids' weekly planner, and it's the parents' info on what we're doing in our classroom. So it's like all in here. And so they just click on what they want to work on. I have their ketchup, mustard, pickle, so they're their must do, what they need to catch up on, and then their pickles, things they can do if they get done early. And I use this, I just post this on my smart board, and I set the timer for whatever their independent work time is. And they just click on what they need to click on to do what they have to do. So I teach so they have in the morning, they can work through all their must-dos, which I love because that gives my advanced kids, they can use their independent work time how they want to. Like, I'm not wasting their time. They can get their work done and prove to me, I got this is easy for me. And then they can go straight to the kind of work that's more differentiated for them, that kind of keeps their brain still charged. So like Dreambox, right? It's adaptive software, and so they love it. They can get challenged with that. Amplify is something else we're using this year that challenges them, and so I love that because I'm not wasting their time, and that's something that's always hard with those high kids. And then so the kids just work on that. When I'm ready to start the day and I'm ready to start lessons, I'll teach my math lesson for 15 to 20 minutes, and then they go straight into their independent work time. And then I have a little section of buddy time where they stand a couple feet away and they just share what they worked on together during that independent work time. And so what's nice on Seesaw is I can just link the Seesaw activity and it just goes straight. That's that new feature that they built in since the pandemic, which is so nice. And so they just go straight to the activity they need to get done. And then they just click add response. But I have a few students who are either gone for vacation or they're being quarantined right now. And so what's nice is since we do this every single day in the classroom, it's the exact same thing they do at home. So I've had no problems getting work or like kids not understanding what to do. It's just the same thing. They just do it at home without me. So they know when they're at home, a lot of the kids will actually watch these videos in the morning. And so then they kind of get an idea of what the math lesson will be for that day. But then the kids at home, they have a video they can watch to help them solve their problems for the day. That's essentially what I do. And what's also nice is on the kids, they can check the Seesaw activities they need to finish, and then they just go back to their weekly planner, which this is like in my way here. Sorry, get away. There we go. Then they just go, I click on phonics and we do it again. And I'll link some of my like lessons on here just so that this is all I need as a teacher. I just throw it on the board, and if I have a PowerPoint presentation I need, I can just click it and immediately, and the kids can they can view this if they want to, and they can look at it at home, and they can just see what we're doing for the lesson for the day. And then I have my cleanup timer down here that we use in the classroom as well. It's just the same thing. I archive all my old lessons, so if they want to go back and look at something, they can. That's what we do. Those kids they just get it done. I do put like a morning video on the Monday page, and then I also put a link here to my Bitmoji class in case they want to, if they're done early with everything and they still want to challenge themselves, then my Bitmoji is full of some personalization as well. And the books, that's another thing, is like, because of COVID, my read alouds, they can't look through on their own independently. So I've just been putting my read alouds of our personal narratives up here as well that we've been reading through so that they can read them on their own. So.
So inspiring. This is so great. So I have so many questions.
Yeah.
My first one is, how long did it take your students to get into this routine? Because I have a feeling now your students come in and they just go. They know what to do. So how long did it take you to get them into that routine?
I was able to start pulling small groups the 3rd week. So it took about 2 weeks. Yeah, I would say about 2 weeks.
Okay.
But it's, once again, it's all with accountability. Like, none of this works if you don't hold kids accountable. So they know if they don't get their work done, you know, some students, they just need more time. And so I'm not a teacher that gives out homework unless they waste their time. And so if they've wasted their time that day and they didn't get their work done, I just email parents, and parents know how to access this, and they have to do it for homework that night. And if they still don't do it, then I just hold them accountable. So instead of doing any of the fun stuff, they have to get their work done first. And so I think at the beginning I work with a healthy population. If working with harder populations of students, you know, it takes a little bit longer sometimes. But with like a healthy population, I think we have like 30% free and reduced lunch. It took me 2 weeks. So before they got it, and they were like, I better get this done.
You've been doing this a while, so try to think back with me.
Okay.
So would you say your teaching style has flipped from being in front of the kids and do this to more of facilitator, coach, and being kind of one-on-one more with your kids? Like, how has your role changed in the classroom?
That's a great question. You know, there's that huge controversial debate, I feel like, between like direct teaching and like facilitated teaching. And I just feel like you need both. So I'm big into direct teaching. I feel like it's important to heavily model exactly what I want from my kids. So at the beginning of the year when I was teaching them this, I model what not to do. And so I show them, like, I pretend I'm a kid. I'll like put on a wig and talk in a funny voice. And I show them this is not okay, because they get like a clearer picture. And after you teach for a while, you kind of know what annoys you, you know? So I'll do little, you know, I'll like play around. I'll like flip the computer weird. I'll like press the keys a million times. I'll, you know, refuse to do my work. I'll pout, and they love it. They think it's so funny. But it's very intentional humor that ties their long-term memory, that like signals you can't do that. This is not what students do. And then I go back and I change to a different wig and I show them how to do it correctly. And then I have kids do it, because if kids can see other kids doing it, they feel empowered. They're like, hey, that kid did it right, so I can do it. But I transfer that into just all my teaching. So even obviously with mathematics, there's so much uncovering. So it's a lot of facilitating and like discovery. But then there's some subject areas where it's very, I do, we do, you do. And so, you know, there's times for both, for sure. Facilitating is my favorite. I love like deep, rich questions and conversations with kids and letting them sort of really drive the discovery. But there's times where it has to be very explicit. This is how you say A, you know? So yeah, so that's, I hope that, does that answer your question okay?
Oh my gosh, that was like the best answer ever. And I love it, because I always try to explain that blended it's not all new, it's balanced. It's balanced learning. And that's what your answer is just perfect to that. It's such a great balance of, don't throw everything out, do a little bit of this and a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Do what works.
Yes.
I love it. So I kind of wanted to, I've got another question that I want to ask, and Candace, this is going to kind of follow up with what you were asking, but I'm explaining to teachers and trying to help them see, like, using that real time data. And so I know we can't spend a lot of time here, but you were talking about, like, okay, so if a student doesn't finish their work, how you have to assign them homework or you have to do that. So how do you track that? How do you know what students have done and then they haven't done? And how do you use that real time data to help define the pathway for each student in your class?
Yeah, I just use Seesaw's features, and I'm the students are not just on the computer all day. I want to make sure that's very clear. And I did a huge piece at the beginning of the year, those 2 weeks when I was teaching kids, like, you've got this machinery in front of you and it can bring heaven into our world or it can bring chaos. So you have to treat it well, like be the master. And so be the master of this machine. And so we went through all of Common Sense Media's lesson plans on how to use technology moderately. And that was a big part of my beginning of the year, along with the growth mindset. Really hit those two things hard. So, okay, tell me your question again so I make sure to answer.
How do you track students' work? And I think you answered it using Seesaw, but it's using digital tools. Yeah.
I do, but I have them turn in assignments that are written as well. Assignments, they have to take pictures of work that they're touching with their hands. But yeah, I just check and see, like, some of these kids that haven't turn this in, is because they're doing it right now. This is like what's due today. And then, yeah, I just check and see who got it turned in, who didn't. And I will comment so I have a grading scale of a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the classroom. And that's another thing on the first 2 weeks is we look through lots of examples of this is what a 1 looks like. This is what a 2 looks like. This is what a 3 looks like. This is what a 4 looks like for reading and math and writing. And so the kids know the power of what a 1 means. They know the power of what a 4 means. And so I say, 1 or 2, I will send that work back to you, either because you just didn't get it or it was sloppy. And we don't do sloppy work in this classroom. And then a 3 is grade level. It's like, hey, you got it. That's great. Let's move on. You're ready for something harder. A 4 means yes, like you may be ready for 3rd grade stuff. And so the kids are always wanting to get a 4 because they want to be ready. They want to be a 3rd grader. They're like, I want to be a 3rd grader. And so I will comment. I don't comment on all of their work. That would kill me because there's so many Seesaw activities they turn in. So just the ones that are concerning to me, I'll look through and then I'll pull a small group from those. And then the work that's like astounded me, I make sure, out of respect for my students and the hard work they do, I make sure to tell them this is a 4. Like, congratulations, thank you, keep it up. So that's kind of how I use their data to sort of pull my small groups and lead their instruction.
I love it, and I love the target and the structure you have, because I think that's one thing teachers are struggling with right now about, the real-time data is powerful, but we still have this mindset of we have to go home and do our grading that night. But with what you're talking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just a visual cue of this is who's turned it in and who hasn't, I think those little shortcuts help you during class while they're doing the independent work to know where they are. And I think that's such a great model for teachers to use for these formative types of assessments and assignments.
Yeah, and that 1, 2, 3, 4, I use it like across all content areas because the kids are just too little right now to understand, they can kind of get percentages and stuff, but to have the 1, 2, 3, 4, the same thing we put on their grade cards, I just feel like they get it, and they're so humans just have a beautiful intrinsic motivation, and our job as teachers is to catch that on fire. And I feel like clarity does that naturally. It just makes the kids want to get a 4. I didn't have to convince them. I have to be like, you want to get a 4? Like, they just do it. They're like, of course I want a 4. Of course I want to do excellent work, And so they just really made sense to them. And it's easy on me because I don't have to I can look at a piece of, all teachers can do that after you taught for a while. You can look at a piece of work and be like, that kid gets it, that kid doesn't, that kid gets it, that kid's way out there, So it helps me simplify, but also simplifies for the kids as well. So yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that Candace was saying, what digital content has been most effective with your students. And we've talked about that, Seesaw being a really great one. I see you using Google Slides quite a bit, which is awesome. It's so easy. I always encourage teachers who are just starting to build that digital classroom. Google Slides is your go-to, even after you master it, you're going to continue to use it. But I kind of want to follow up with a question Candace did ask, because I think this is kind of the right time for that. What signs, and so let me take a minute. Let me tie this back to your first philosophy that I just love about being okay with failure and learning what works for us and our students. So what signs are you looking for to determine if the tool you're using or the content you're using is effective?
That's a great question. I would say it's the same thing when you're assessing a curriculum. You have to kind of try it out and kind of feel it a bit. And then eventually once you've used it for a couple months, you're like, okay, this is crap. This does not work. Versus this is so fun. I feel like after I've used it for a couple of months regularly, I can tell, because I'm I love this as a teacher. If you're passionate about it and you get excited and you feel giddy joy in your belly, you're let's do this again. That's how I know it works.
And I think to get there, you have to experience different ones. So I always push teachers starting out, pick 3 tools. Don't do more than 3, but pick 3, because you need to be able to go, I love how this one works and I wish this one would do it. And you're not going to have anything to compare it to if you don't have a variety.
It's true. Yeah, I think, honestly, I don't use a whole lot of tech tools, which probably sounds really bad, but
no.
I have my favorites. And I was introduced to a couple during the pandemic that I really liked. But once again, it's just you like what you said, it's trying it, just like with curriculum. We as teachers, we know what good curriculum does. It sparks joy in the teacher, and we see awesome work from the kids. We're like, wow, that phrase they just used during that Flipgrid, I would have never guessed that they would have come up with something so good. I'm going to use it again, So it's like a natural teacher feeling, that you get. So, yeah.
I see a meme in our future here. All right, let me totally switch gears. So we've talked a lot about our teachers and our students. So now we have to talk about this new group that we are having to educate and train. So how are you working with your parents? How are you training your parents? How do you get them on board with blended learning and what you're doing?
It's a great question. Parents are a bit trickier, because I think when we go into teaching, as a teacher, we always assume that our students are the ones that we're serving, and that we hold accountable. But actually, we're leaders of a whole community. And so with parents, there's an accountability that you have to be bold as a teacher to ask from your parents. And right now, there's this common theme of a lot of pity that people are feeling for one another, where it's oh, it's really hard, and parents are working and they're doing their best, and and that happens with impoverished kids as well. With kids in poverty, it's a common thing to be oh, poor child, they're traveling from home to home and it's so sad, and so we should be more gentle with them. But that's actually not what's true. That's not showing kindness. Having high expectations and pushing people to be excellent is being kind to them. And it takes a boldness and a firmness from a teacher to say, you have to check on your kids' work, and I'm going to be calling you if I notice you haven't, and so that's the tricky thing, is to kind of move past the sort of sorrow we feel for one another and now enter into okay, we can do this, and I know you can do it, and I know I can do it, and so let's push each other to be the best we can be. And parents hold me accountable as a teacher. If I say something mean to their kid, they are going to let me know. They're going to message me, But I have to do the same for parents. Is, you know, we are a team together fighting for this child. And so if I notice that parents, like I had a parent this year who didn't want to have email, and I said, no, I will personally help you set up email, but you have to have email in my classroom. And that's just the thing, is we have to be firm, because I love my parents the way I love my students, and I am kind of a leader role for all of them. And so I have to kind of step into that sort of semi-authority and be very firm about what I expect from my parents and my students. And so that was something. I have a few parents who are non-readers this year, and so I've been having to send. That's why a parent didn't want to do email, which makes sense. And a part of you is like, oh no, they don't know how to read, so I'll just send paper. But no, I can send emails. I got to find what's going to protect my joy as a teacher. And if I have to sit and make like a bunch of copies for this one parent, I'm going to be like, no way. I got to get home. I got to eat food and pet my dog. You know, I can't sit here all night making copies for one parent. So I make sure she has email, and I send videos instead, which are really quick, a little embarrassing, because, you know, I have to like make them real quick. But yeah, that's been really helpful for her. And if I notice that I've emailed and she hasn't checked her email, I call her and I say, you need to check your email for these messages. I'm going to be checking next week to make sure you got them, because I want to make sure that you feel connected to our room. And so, yeah, that's been a little different, is my emails have been a lot more interactive. I tell parents, like, the same thing with my students. I don't repeat myself as a teacher. So you hear what I say and you hear it one time, and then I don't repeat myself. So you got to listen, because my words are precious. And once again, we don't want to develop learned helplessness and just have kids stop listening to us because we talk for them. No. Like I say it one time, you listen, and then you go and you do. And it's the same thing with parents. I can't keep telling parents passwords over and over and over again. So I show, in those videos, I make it very clear, like, hi, here's the password, here's where you can access it, and this is where I'm going to tell you every time you email me asking for it, this is all I'm going to tell you. So make sure you check this, okay? And so that's kind of been, I've had to step into a bit more of an authority place with parents than I probably ever had to be, especially with the healthier population. My previous population, I was definitely authority. I was mama and teacher in a lot of ways. Here, I haven't had to do that as much as I have had to do during the pandemic. And so that's kind of something new that's changed for me working with this population, is me having to check in with the parents through my emails. I'm holding them accountable to do the work as well. So I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Oh my gosh, everything. I wish we could just keep going. Like, you have a classroom to get back to.
Oh gosh, yeah. So.
Okay, wow. I've just been taking notes, writing everything down. Just like I told you, Jody, just talk and we will learn just by listening to you talk, because I have learned a ton already. Are there any final questions from those of you who are here? Anything else you want to ask Jody before we let her get back to her kiddos and her classroom? Okay, pretty quiet.
I just want to say thank you, Jody. This is about the third time I've heard you, and every time you just inspire me.
Oh,
I know you inspire your students and those parents that you're working with and your peers, and thank you so much for carving out this time today. We appreciate it very much.
You're gonna make me cry. That's so sweet to hear during such like hard times. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Jody. We very much appreciate you. And no worries, I'm going to be emailing you questions. You're just part of us now. We're just going to
I'm so
ask
honored.
you and ask you whatever we need to. So thank you so much. And your kids are so lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And I do want to say on this recording that this was not pre-rehearsed. Like, these were the questions in the chat, and Jody is that good. She rolled with it.
You
It was
so kind. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I've made a lot of mistakes, that's how you learn, right? It's just by bombing it over and over again. So thank you so much. very encouraging for my soul. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so guys who are left, let's kind of get back to our agenda. I know Rachel has a couple of things to share about 100% virtual. That was kind of our big topic last week. So Rachel, I'll let you go ahead and share. And then we'll just end with burning questions, things, you know, what's on fire, what are you needing to know about, so that we can kind of know where to go next for next week. So Rachel.
Absolutely. Yes. So I've got a couple of links here. If you will click the first one for me, Julie, the suggested pacing guide. So Jody hit on this, and I think that this is a best practice for blended learning in virtual students and in-class students. I think that having a structure in place and letting students know that structure is great. So Julie, if you will scroll on down, this is a blended learning planning guide that we have, and please, you can use it. This is an example, and then I have a blank template link down here. But scroll up there, Julie, to the pacing guide, that table right there. Yeah. So this is something that I encourage teachers that went through training to do with me, and I really encourage you to share with your parents. And this goes into that community piece that Jody talked about. So parents, I think when they see the virtual work, like they don't have it that much